Alright, in this video, we're going to address how to create ears for our CG head. Uh, and I stated before, rather than going into my model and extruding parts out or starting from some sort of polygon, sometimes a much better technique is to actually go in there and draw the topology yourself. So I'm going to start by hiding this guy right here, creating a layer for him, just calling this head for now. Save. Alright, then I'm going to go into the side viewport right here, and I'm going to start drawing some of the main features of my ear. And again, I'm going to be using planes and extruding technique. So, and again, sometimes it's important for you to have an understanding of what's going on here. Because again, this is a flat image, so it can only give you so much information. So, again, we have like this border area right here. But one thing to keep in mind is also the indentation areas. This one and this one being somewhat same depth, and then areas like this and this one being a lot deeper. But again, we're going to start by actually drawing in some of the main features that we see right here. So I'm going to start by going into create, and I'm just going to create a plane, the polygon, plane. I'm just going to start over here. Okay, and I'm pressing 4 so I can see through my geometry. And again, depending on your workflow, you might want to, and depending on how much geometry you have on your head, it's going to be a little different. I'm going to keep my polygons somewhat large, because I know the faces on my head are a little larger, so when it comes time to attaching everything, it's going to make it easier for me to kind of bring it together. If your head has more subdivisions than that, then you can go ahead and create smaller faces and be more detailed. And again, I'm just going to start by just kind of molding some of this vertices into shape. Then I'm going to select this edge. I'm going to keep my edit mesh tools right here, so I'm going to go into extrude, move this out, rotate it into place. Probably it's a better idea to actually go around and do the whole thing rather than having to go into vertex mode and moving each one individually. It just kind of makes it more efficient. So again, pressing G to repeat the last command, which is extrude, and then this, switch into rotation by pressing E. Alright, G again. Alright, and again, when it comes to this, it's very important to know some shortcuts just to kind of make it easier. Not only easier, but it makes your workflow a lot faster. So G, rotation. Okay. Okay, so my last command there changed, so I just need to go back and click on extrude again. Rotation. Okay, and again, at this point, I'm not really that much concerned about how large these polygons are, because as I start creating other pieces, I might have to go in there and create more subdivisions and more detail. So I'm just trying to get the general idea of what's happening here. And rotation. Rotation. And let's just do one more. Okay, now I'm going to go into my vertex mode and just fix this up a little bit. Alright, and right now, again, I'm using the reference from my image plane. But even if it makes it easy, if you don't have something that's very clear in your image, you can definitely bring in image planes with a more clear ear if it makes it easier for you. That's the reason we're making it separate, just so you can go in there and add the detail that you need, and then worry about attaching after the fact. Alright, so let's see, we have this, and then we have a couple more details here that we can draw in, this being one of them. So again, I want to go into create. Actually, I want to move on to a different file. So again, you go in here and you start doing the details like this. Alright, and again, you want to go in there and kind of draw in the main features, the main contours of this ear. So I started with this, and again, notice that on this one I actually started all the way here because these parts connect all the way around. And then this, and again, knowing that I was actually I'm going to be able to create this detail right here by extruding a couple more faces. So this will be the beginning stage. Let's move on to a, let's see, okay. So again, in this file, I started already connecting some of these of the geometry and creating a little bit of depth. Alright, another thing that I ended up doing at this point also, it's keeping into account that again, this is a three-dimensional object, and not all the detail that needs to be created for this can be created on the side viewport. So I went into the front viewport. Alright, and again, even though it's not the same image, I think what I settled on doing was on creating as much detail as I can using the side viewport, and then going into the front, just making sure that it's kind of, you know, giving it that 3D perspective. And then once I'm done, I'm just going to be able to go back to the front and just kind of move things around to make it fit what's going on in there. So again, at this stage, I started creating a little bit of depth by extruding in some objects. Some faces. I also connected. It's all one piece, so I was able to go in here and start connecting some of the faces to their corresponding area. And again, I'm kind of smoothing it out just to see, if it's actually matching what our ear is doing here. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So then the next step is going in here and trying to close some of these gaps. And again, the thing about the ear is that, unlike the face and having to be mindful about loops and things like that for deformation, this is kind of an irregular model. Alright, so you can be a little bit more flexible as far as how you go about creating some of the detail here. But some of the rules do apply, like making sure that if you have triangles, you keep them to a minimum. But even if you do in something that's not going to deform for animation purposes, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So again, if I want to go in here, just make sure that I'm in edge mode. And just select all these edges, go into mesh, start filling holes. Alright. And again, at this point, I'm just kind of I'm concerned about making sure that I start connecting this geometry. I can later on go back and see if there's anything else that I can do about making sure that I don't have this triangle here. But for now, it's just kind of doing what it's supposed to do. And again, same thing here. And again, keeping in mind that this is one of those areas that's going to have a deeper kind of hole that what we have going on here. We could gap this hole, cap it. Alright, we could just gonna go in here and start making some connections. Again, if I wanted to make this into a four-sided polygon, I could just create an edge right here and start connecting. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that by going into my interactive split tool. right? And again, you have a little bit more of a free range as far as how you go about creating the shape of this, because it's an irregular shape and it's not something that needs to be deformed for the animation, but starting from something that creates the main curvature of your ear makes it easier to get the right shape. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect this component. Alright, so that's that, and I can start going in here and start connecting some of these components here as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on to the next file. Let's go to ear 4. Okay, I think this is a little bit too far. Let's go to 3. Alright, so again, in this file you can see that I went in there and I started kind of filling in all the gaps. Alright, and again, a little bit different than the decisions that I was making on the last one. I'm not too concerned about some of the triangles that I'm creating here. I did find a way to make this into a 4-sided, but I still have a triangle right here. I connected or bridged these faces. And again, I'm kind of going back and forth between the smooth version and the geometry version, just to make sure that everything is being welded correctly. Because if you wouldn't, you would see some sort of either weird deformation or some sort of sharp edge. So in the next version, now that I have the main definition of my ear and I've kind of gone in here and filled in some of these gaps in between, I'm going to start adding some depth to my ear. So I'm just going to go especially to these areas that have the deeper holes, and that's in version 4. Alright, and again, it was just a matter of either taking what was already there and pushing it back, or either going in there and doing some sort of extrusion. Okay, and again, we're starting to see a little bit of more irregular geometry going on here. I still have, if I was working on this file, I'll probably have to go in here and clean this up a bit. You can see that I also went in here into this area and I extruded the faces in. Again, by adding a subdivision here and extruding that in, and that's what gave me this kind of curve in kind of detail that I have going on. Because again, that's something that you don't see in your reference, but it's actually kind of curved in, so you want to have something along the lines of that. And this part right here, something I just have to kind of make sure that I went in there and extrude it in. Again, don't have to do much in here, because that's probably a detail that's never going to be too close to our virtual camera or anything like that. And I also went and made sure that there was I started creating some geometry that's going to be able to help me connect to the head as when I get to that point. And again, just making sure that everything's on quads. But as you can see, there are some areas in here where we might be able to find some triangles. And again, these areas are not that important. So it really depends on the aim of the project. So if you really needed something that was all based on quads, you would take the time to actually go in there and do the details and change it and make it as perfect as you can. If it's not something that's relevant to what you're doing, in areas like this, you don't really have to spend that much time. So let's move on to the next one. Let's see, here 6, here 5. Alright. So again, in the last file, you saw me going in here and start adding some geometry here for the transition between the ear and the face. So I went into my face and I started deleting some faces. And again, I also kind of created the back of the ear right here with some geometry. And again, you're seeing some triangles. These are areas that are not that big of a deal. Some of these triangles can be kind of fixed in a very easy manner. For instance, this one, 2 triangles together, an easy fix is just going in there and deleting that face. things like that. So now the problem at this stage is, making sure that both the geometry around the gap that you created for your face matches the number of polygons that you have going around your edges. So you have to make a conscious decision about how you're going to go about it. Again, it looks like, let's see, this has 10 polygons here. And this one definitely has more going around. I'm not going to go ahead and count it. But just based on the fact that I really like the topology that I created for my face, I'm not going to go ahead and remove or add more geometry here if I don't need to. Alright, so especially for something that's again a regular shape like this, and it's something that doesn't need to be the form for animation, it's probably easier to go in here and either remove or add geometry as you need. And let's just go to the last one. Okay, so then it was a matter of going into my ear and making sure that the edges around the gap that I created for my face matched what was happening around my ear, and then going in here and adding a couple more details to make sure that it looked like an actual ear. I think another thing that ended up happening in this was that I felt that the side image that I was using as reference, actually it was a little bit had a little bit of perspective on it, and I felt that the distance between the eye and the ear was a little bit too far. Like it just didn't look realistic once I placed it in that position. So and again, I think it's a conscious decision that I made on my last file, and I made sure that it was actually closer to the eye than what it is on the picture, because again, my reference has a little bit of perspective. This is not an image that was created for the sake of creating a 3D model. So you just have to make a conscious decision again to use the side image mostly as a reference, but just kind of settle on the one that's kind of giving you the better details, which is the front, and then going in here and making sure that everything's kind of in place as it needs to be. Okay, and let's just go ahead and make this into a polygon and just see what's going on here. Again, trying very hard to make sure that I don't have triangles. At this point, I kind of needed one here. Again, this is something that I can address later on, because I can still go into my head and add more details. But I don't want to do that right now, because I'm still gonna have to attach the head to a body and things like that. I want to keep this geometry flow as is, and then once my body is attached together, go in there and add as much detail as I need, or again leave it as is, because that triangle doesn't seem to be doing that much of a damage there. And again, another thing to be, unless this character was going to be bald, these are some areas that are going to be covered by hair or whatever other detail. Okay, so this concludes how you go about create a ear for a 3D head.